Salam alaikum. This is for the Islamic Center of Southern California, juz number 5. And I will share screen. And we will start, inshallah. So for juz 5, it's mainly in Surah An-Nisa. And all the verses are from there. It's a rich surah, probably hundreds of pearls of wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously we only have time to cover a few of them, so we'll just start. The first is that the Quran describes the best of faith, and it describes it as those who follow Ibrahim alayhi salam. And as the Quran defines who has the best claim to Ibrahim, is it the Christian, is it the Jew? And it says it's neither. It's actually the one who follows Ibrahim, and he is one who surrendered himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and turned away from falsehood and towards the truth. And by then, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Ibrahim a friend, Khalil, and the Quran translates that as he exalted Abraham with his love. So this is the best of faith. The Quran also stresses the distinction between those who remain passive at home and don't do anything, and those who strive. And this is not just about war and the battlefield and anything that requires force. It's about work in general. It's about exerting effort. It's about making sure that you are involved in the situation, not just a spectator. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that he has exalted those who strive hard with their possessions and their lives. So with our money, with our time, with our thoughts, with even our prayers, that we exert more to support the good work and the good cause, the cause of God, which is the noblest of all causes on this earth. And so we give whatever we can for that cause. And those who don't are just passive, but those who actually strive are the ones that will be given a mighty reward. Then this important distinction also between the major sins and the sayyat, the bad deeds. So there's a distinction here that the Quran talks about, and that if we avoid the major sins, such as murder, adultery, theft, things like that, these are we know that they are shameful, and we know that they are major because they cause the destruction of society. And so to avoid them and to shun them will then enable us to clear up our bad deeds, the minor things that we do, the mishaps, the stumbling, as the Quran talks about, that a Muslim, a believer endures by realizing they did something bad, then they ask for forgiveness, and then they amend themselves and go back. So if we continue to avoid the great sins, then the smaller sins, if you will be easier to overcome. And Allah will wipe them out and give us a clean slate as we approach the day of judgment. Sectarian violence is really something that the Quran not only abhors, but considers to be one of the highest and most major of sins. And in verse 93, it says, whoever deliberately slays another believer, his requital shall be hell. You can't be more clear than that. And it's really unfortunate that, especially in the Middle East, we see this sectarian violence and we're all used to it now. We accept it. The first thing we should do is go back to the Quran and reinforce this idea that the Quran not only shuns it, but considers to be one of the greatest sins, and anybody that indulges in that is promised the hellfire. And we see that, so many times we spend a lot of our effort on looking at, for example, how women cover their hair, or how they're dressed, or how long is a beard, and things like that. These are not considered to be the major issues in the Quran. Modesty is the major issue, of course, but the issues where there is strict adherence that is required by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's a punishment that is stipulated in the verse itself, is something that we should take a closer look at and consider more of an issue, not to take it lightly. And so this verse is very important in terms of putting the priorities for us as we move forward as an ummah. The idea of social order is important, so obeying authority is important, but this verse tells us the authority is not just somebody that comes because of bloodline or socioeconomic status, but it is an authority that we entrust. So it says, "Oh, you have attained to faith, pay heed unto God, and pay heed unto the apostle, and unto those from among you who have been entrusted with authority by you," of course. So this idea of entrustment is part of our aspiration for self-determination in every walk of life, in every aspect of our world, whether in government or in the affairs of the public. There's a process of entrustment. Sometimes the authority says, you have to obey me because the Quran says so. Well, yes, if we entrusted you. So this idea of dictatorship is also shunned in the Quran and in Islam. When we look at the problems that we face and why we see people go headstrong on things that are wrong, it's usually it's because they're not following their minds, they're following their desires, and their desires control them as opposed to them controlling the desire. And in Ramadan, we actually lock up our desires because we're fasting, and we learn to control them. That is true freedom. But when the desires control you, then Satan it makes it easier for Satan to put the trap out there where you fall into, and then you regret what you do. And so the idea that it's Satan that's making you do it, no, it's your vain desires that is making you do it. So control your desires, and that is the best way to avoid Satan or to defeat Satan. And with that, if we achieve what we want in this life, if we follow the best of faith, if we avoid the major sins, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will pardon us with the minor bad deeds that may accumulate throughout our lifetime. If we promote life and oppose any kind of murder, especially within sectarian violence, and push away sectarian violence, if we do these things, then we are promised that we'll be among the company of the prophets in the hereafter. So the verse says, "For all who pay heed unto God and the apostle shall be among those upon whom God has bestowed his blessings," the prophets. So there are the prophets. And then with the prophets are those who never deviated from the truth, those who stand for the truth and will not waver from the truth. And then after that, those who with their lives bore witness to the truth, the shuhada, the ones who demanded that the truth be preserved. So they testified to the truth, even if they had to sacrifice their lives for it. And the righteous ones, the ones who are reforming and repairing and fixing and reconciling between people and resolving conflicts and disputes, those righteous ones who are always doing good. Those three categories of people, the ones who will stand for the truth, the one who will testify to the truth, and the ones who will do what is right in this world, they will be in the company of the prophets. And in that, inshallah, we will be among those in the hereafter. So in conclusion, The best of faith is the creed of Abraham and doing good work. Number 2, striving and passiveness are not equal. We must be among those who are striving for God's cause, and that's the group that will get the mighty reward in the hereafter and in this life. It's good for us only if we only knew how good, just like fasting is good for us, only if we realized how good it is. Number 3, avoid the major sins and God will clean up your bad deeds. Number 4, our true enemy is our vain desire. And that's how by controlling our vain desires, we will defeat Satan. And number 5, our goal, inshallah, is to be in the company of the prophets. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum.